Here to introduce our next seminar is once again the McCaslin Chair of Cowboy Culture and Curator of Native American Art and Ethnology, Dr. Eric Singleton.
Howdy. Thank you. Get her a ticket all weekend. So our next seminar is titled Blending Cultures, My Mexican Roots and Western Inspiration. Our moderator, Gabriela Gomez, is an architect with 40 years of experience in interior design and 10 years of experience as a Latin American art curator. She is joined today by Gladys Roldán-de-Moras. They will discuss the cultural influences behind her work and how they shape her vision of the American West. Gladys is known for her paintings that spotlight Spanish culture, including courageous, gallant Mexican escaramuza, daringly riding horses side saddle in a rodeo-style festival, romantic flamingo senoritas clad in exuberant Andalusian dresses, and old-fashioned, delicate damsels in intimate, exquisite poses. She is an award-winning artist, including right here at Prix West, where she won the 2023 Frederick Remington Award. Please welcome Gladys Roldán-de-Moras and Gabriela Gomez.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here. I promise you, it's not going to be as long as the previous. I'm just talking about my journey in art, so thank you for being here.
Thank you, and thank you, Eric, for your kind introduction. We appreciate everyone's presence here today. Gladys and I are very excited to share this talk with you, which is going to be a talk between friends and colleagues. So, thank you. Well, let's start.
Let's start.
Gladys, your art is not just a creation, but a continuation of a rich cultural legacy seen through your unique perspective. It all began with your abuelito, your grandfather, a person dear to you whom you didn't have the chance to spend much time with. Your grandfather was a pillar of the movement that led to the recognition of charrería as Mexico's national sport. Your work is a testament to his efforts. Please share with us his journey and how it inspired your art.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Monterrey, Mexico, and I am privileged and honored to call this great nation home now for 41 years, a place that is very dear to me, where my children, my grandchildren were born. My family, my extended family, have all served in the armed forces, so this is home for me. But as it happens with a lot of us that come from other countries, we carry a nostalgia for our home countries. And I knew when I came to the States and started painting that I wanted to paint my heritage, especially coming from Texas, San Antonio, where there is a very large community of Hispanics. I felt right at home there too. So I'm telling you a little bit about my background so I can share with you how I feel this was like a circle that I did not know, that was closing a circle I did not know when I was younger. Like I said, my grandfather was a pillar for the making, in the northern Mexico, for making, declaring charrería the official sport of Mexico, among many other men. And growing up, he passed away when I was very young, but I would remember going into my grandmother's old Victorian house as a young child and going up to the closets we were not supposed to go in, opening the closets, and seeing all of these belts and suits and hats and boots and all kinds, and just wondering, where was that from? Then I would go to another room because my grandmother and my grandfather, like a lot of people back then, had separate bedrooms. And so I would go there and I would open the door, and here again, Lo and behold, I did not know that my grandmother was watching from downstairs, because every time I opened this big closet, there was a stained window. And so it would turn on, and my grandmother was, "What are y'all doing in there?" so I really didn't talk much about it, and well, life brought me here to the States, and I knew I wanted to paint my heritage, so I started painting my heritage. When one day I was very honored to win the major award for the American Impressionist Society with the subject matter of the escaramuzas, the women on horses, the female part of the charreria. And news got to Mexico, to the family, and my friends and family that were still alive, they called me and they said, "Gladys, we can't believe that the love of your grandfather, which he was instrumental in creating the charreria, as the national sport of Mexico, has shown up in your work." That is when, as an adult, I had to find out more. I did not know that my grandfather was in the national Cowboy, in the Hall of Fame as precisely that. And not only did he do that, he also promoted music, everything that had to do with the arts. It's interesting to me why I say it's a full circle, because when I got married, and my husband and my son are back there, thank you for being here. Of all the things my grandmother, who was a very elegant lady, could have given me to take to the United States, because we were coming here for graduate school, she gave me her China Poblana dress, which, well, I'll talk about that in a minute, but we're talking about my grandfather. If you can see this photograph here, there is a gentleman with glasses sitting down, which is the same gentleman that was on the horse. There was a very famous conjunto norteño accordionist in Mexico. And there was a bar in Mexico where a lot of the business owners would get together after work and enjoy music. My grandfather loved polka. I don't know if you know this, but there's a lot of polka that is influenced from the Germans in Mexico. So I learned to hear a lot of that polka in Mexico. And there was this accordion player who is now Mr. Antonio Tanguma, the greatest polka player of Mexico. And back then he needed funds, and he approached my grandfather and he said, "I need an accordion, a new accordion." So my grandfather said, "If you compose a polka norteña and you name it after my wife, Evangelina, I will buy you whatever accordion you want." And this is Mr. Antonio Tanguma. He is in the Hall of Fame of Music in Mexico. And the reason I'm telling all of these little stories is because I'm sharing how I feel that I was meant to do this for some reason. So my husband, who is a professor of engineering, but he's a very talented musician and classical accordionist. Back then in San Antonio, there was the classical accordion orchestra that got gathered in our home. And there's Our Lady of the Lake University. Dr. William Cott had invited this classical accordion orchestra to play at the Polka Festival. And of course, we thought we were going to hear all of German polka. And I was sitting with Dr. Cott, and they started playing this fabulous polka. Everybody was dancing, and just wonderful. When they were done, Dr. Cott turns around to me and he says, "Gladys, are you aware that there is Mexican polka?" And I said, "Yes, I do." He says, "Well, you're going to watch these dancers dance one of the most famous polkas there is, and I want you to enjoy it." And I said, "Great." And lo and behold, they get on stage, and what are they dancing to? My grandmother's polka. And I said, "Dr. Cott, but do you know where this polka comes from?" He says, "We've been trying to find out." I said, "This is my grandmother." He said, what? And he says, and I said, I didn't know that it was well known. It turned out that through the years, it's become one of the most important folkloric dancing, folkloric dancing all over in Mexico, in the United States, even in Europe.
Yes.
And this was a little polka that would be played in one of my grandfather's ranches on the weekends with a little conjunto, and it was our polka. So
we have the music.
Yes.
Would you like to hear a bit of it?
Yes. You can really hear the German influence, can't you?
Yeah.
It's just very beautiful. So that's Polka Evangelina. My grandmother's Evangelina, my mother's Evangelina, my sister's Evangelina.
Yeah.
And we were able to get the whole history, and Dr. Cott was very much into the dancing, the history. There's a great center at this university, and it's finally registered. That was incredible to me. When I came to the States, another little thing about telling me, you need to represent your heritage. And there I am in this photo. I am the one tugging to my mother's skirt. Getting on stage is not easy for me, as you can see from back then. But this is in Monterrey.
Let's talk a bit about your grandmother, your
Yes.
abuelita, Evangelina. She was very close to you.
Yes.
She was there through your entire life. A woman who had been keeping a treasure for many years for someone very special, and that was you. By uncovering your heritage, she made you realize what your passion and mission and true purpose as an artist were. Tell us about her and the legacy she left behind you.
I was very, very close to my grandmother. And here's one of the ranches of my grandfather. One of his was called El Charro, of course. I was very close. She was what I would like to call a very Victorian educated lady who married somebody that loved charreria, and though it wasn't her cup of tea, but she went along. What was interesting to me is that when we decided to marry, again, I was trying to say that story, sorry. When we were getting married, of all the things she could have given me, she gave me her hand-embroidered China Poblana dress, which is like, okay, didn't think much about it. But now, in hindsight, I realized that was another little thing for me to keep my culture, to represent it. This is my mother, and this is her cousin dressed up, because we dress up with the China Poblana dress for very special occasions in Mexico. It is considered the national dress of Mexico. And this is Evangelina, my grandmother, when that polka was written for her.
And here she is with your mother.
That is my great-grandmother in the middle. I'm the little tiny one on the side. And that's towards the end of her life. I was very close to her. Thank you for putting those photos in there. That's special. And this is me with the escaramuzas through the years.
Let's talk about preserving tradition. Accuracy is a term that not only applies to your art, but also reflects your pivotal role in preserving tradition. Your dedication to ensuring good taste and uniformity in presentation during contemporary charreria competitions through your meticulous adherence to the present-day regulations of the charro and escaramuza outfits is commendable. Each element of the attire, from colors to materials, cuts and embellishments is defined with specific characteristics. And your ability to capture this on your canvases is a confirmation to your respect for tradition. Could you share more about this topic?
Yes. When I started painting this subject matter and attending amazing museums and galleries, I saw beautiful artwork of charrería. But I also saw, and I want to be very clear with this, I am talking about contemporary charrería, the national sport of Mexico, not the Mexican vaqueros from the Hollywood movies or from the Época de Oro of the Mexican movies. I'm talking about contemporary because a lot of people do not know that the Federación Mexicana of Charrería puts out a book with the guidelines of the dresses, not only of the women, of the men, every 4 years. We can't just simply paint a woman on a horse with ruffles and call her an escaramuza. We can call her anything else. But there's an old saying in Mexico which says, vestirse de charro, to dress as a charro, is to dress as Mexico. So it carries a lot of responsibility because if we think about Mexico, the nation of Mexico has 130 million people. For you to be a charro, you have to be federated into the Federación Mexicana of Charrería. There's only 26,000 men and women in this federation who carry the symbol of Mexico all over the world. Because it's true, when somebody sees a charro, they immediately think Mexico. Nobody confuses it with other countries. So I found that there was a place for me to really study the rules and the regulations of the charros in contemporary charrería and make sure that they were represented in galleries and museums and collections the way they should be presented. I can imagine it's hard, but I can tell you how many times, and again, I've seen excellent paintings, especially here with all my colleagues. They're amazing. But once in a while, I'll see a charro that has a mariachi hat that's backwards. That's two different things. It's almost like saying to a charro and a mariachi, when you approach a cowboy and you say, oh, here comes the country western, a singer. It's not the same. So so I've been trying little by little a dialogue of explaining to people in contemporary charrería what the difference is. Just like curators check and see how the different eras of the cowboy and their outfits and their tags of the horses or the Native Americans, I wanted to bring a little bit of light that we must also, in contemporary charrería, make sure that we're following the guidelines so that they're authentic. Okay, so this is the vestido de China Poblana, and I was fortunate a couple of years of winning the Frederick Remington Award with that theme. And the reason I also painted it is because it's very special. Again, I got a dress from my grandmother, and I wanted to show people, because people say they know the China Poblana dress, they know, but they don't even know what the dress represents, which the China Poblana was not China and was not Poblana. And a lot of people don't know that. This dress, the history of this dress comes from the 1620s. And there was a princess in India that was kidnapped by pirates in India and brought in as a slave through the now the China,
the Manila galleon.
The Manila galleons, brought into Manila as slaves, as much people. They were called Chinos. And this lady, her name was Mira. She was a princess, very knowledgeable in herbs. And this is not a legend. This is a real story.
History.
Yes, and she was dressed in these sequins dresses with white little blouses. And and they would call her China. They brought her as a slave to Acapulco, where she was taken as a worker, and people from the army, and she served them for all her life until her employers passed away. Her name was Mira, but she was evangelized into be a Catholic, so her name is Catarina de Siena. After the people that hired him passed away, she was given her freedom, and she devoted her life to helping others. She developed a lot of the nursing homes, taking care of the elderly, and taught a lot of the population of Puebla about herbs and how to heal people and everything, knowledge that she brought from India. So that is where this name came of the China Poblana. And that is the dress. It is a dress where we do not get on horses and compete with this dress except for a parade or an exhibition. It has changed through the years. I've been very interested in knowing how the dress has progressed and how it differentiates from the northern to the south. The northern dress made of the China Poblana is all embroidered in silk with different symbols on top. It has a sash. Then it has the three colors of the Mexican flag, and it usually has the Mexican eagle in the front and the Aztec calendar that was not Aztec or wasn't calendar. We won't go there. We won't go there. In the back. That's another story. And then the dress from Puebla is beautifully embroidered with beaded sequins and beautiful motifs and parts of the history. And
Right.
so I painted that so I could share the story of the China Poblana. And in this painting that was recently at the Briscoe, for the first time ever, I painted myself in the back. I always wanted to dance, and Okay, so coming to the dresses of the escaramuzas, there's three dresses of the escaramuzas. One is the China Poblana that I just shared with you. The second one is the charra. The charra, some people would say it looks like a mariachi, but there's a lot of difference, and there's 4 or 5 different categories. In this painting that was also here a couple of years ago, this is the media gala. This is an outfit where you can ride. And I don't want to go through all of the technicalities, but I just wanted to show y'all that every year there is guidelines for these girls. Escaramuzas, I don't know if you know this, these escaramuzas cannot have bangs. They cannot have any kind of body piercings. They cannot have any tattoos. They all have to wear the same outfits. And before they get into the rodeo and compete, this doesn't happen with the male counterpart. Before they get on the rodeo, the judges have to check every single piece of the tack on the horse and give them points. If one is missing, they end up detracting some points, and the outfits have to be the perfect. I could go through all the rules of the outfits, but it would be, I think, too boring unless, For example, this painting just reminded me of when I was starting, because I don't have my grandfather to help me, so I have been learning. I count with the advice of great historians in Mexico, Don Pepe Martinez or Don Eduardo Jimenez, from a great website that's called Preserving the Essence. And these people are trying to keep the contemporary charro dressed the way it should be. But in this particular, not in this one, I was painting a group of girls that I had seen. I photographed it, took them to my studio, and I really liked what I was doing. But I needed to get the model back into my studio. So I called one of the trainers and I said, hey, Jimmy. I said, Jimmy Vallejo, do you know who this girl is? And he says, what are you doing? And I sent him a picture of what I was doing. And he says, Gladys, can you do me a favor? And I said, what is that? He says, you're painting an escaramuza with a sweater. They cannot wear a sweater. They can only wear what this lady on the very far right is wearing, which is a ruana, but they could never wear a sweater. So there's very, very detailed rules that I would invite people to look into. It takes so much work for them to get all these dresses.
Get ready, yes.
Yes.
They're custom made.
Yes, and they're very expensive. Mm-hmm. Very expensive. One thing that I really admire of the charros, well, let me share this with you. Charreria has been present in the United States officially since 1920. There's over 100 associations of charros in the United States. There's over 16 states that practice. I know Oklahoma is one. And what I admire of them is that these teams don't have the sponsorship that big companies have in Mexico. These teams, they will call me and they'll say, Gladys, we need new dresses. Would you sponsor us? Will you help us? Can we do a fundraiser for this? Can we do? They continue this tradition for the love of the art. And it is a very expensive one. They usually work all day. And when do they practice? They practice from 4 to 6 in the morning. And I don't know if you also know this, but it's interesting to know. They ride side saddle. Mm-hmm. And if you've ever ridden side saddle, you know how hard this is. And if you've ever seen one of their routines in a rodeo, it is like women on, how could I say, like ballet on horses. At very high speeds, it's very dangerous. They are great athletes. And I am very lucky to live in San Antonio, where I know so many of these teams, and I get to see them whenever they're available. But
different types of dresses, all of them beautiful. But as we told you, the escaramuza teams, they create the same dress for the team.
Yes.
And they sometimes perform it with that dress just once.
Yes. And the outfit not only includes the dress. Well, I think we saw a slide before, but for example, the neck has to be all the way up to here. The sleeve has to be either short or long, but it has to be wrapped very tight from the elbow down. Then it has to have one sash in the back with one big bow in the shape of a butterfly. See, this one has a longer sleeves. And then of the rules and guidelines, it must have one row of ruffles, at least one row. But underneath, they have a heavily starched petticoat. When I say heavily, you've seen them.
Yes.
It's
like cardboard.
Cardboard. Yes, it's cardboard. That's what gives the big, size to the shirt. They also wear leggings. The shoes have to be only one type of boot, which is called the Jalisco boot. Nothing else. And the bow in the head has to be at the back of the skull. The hair has to be pulled all to the back. Earrings, it's a little bit different. The earrings, they can have different kind of earrings. Then on top of this dress, they have another rebozo shawl that has to be wrapped to the left with a special kind of knot. So there's a lot more that sees the eye with these girls. I always remember one of my first events at a charreada. It was so hot. It was one of those days in San Antonio, what is it, like 105 degrees? And I'm walking, I've got my cameras, my paint box, my sketchbooks, and these girls are on top of these very big horses. It's so hot. They're dressed up with these hats that are heavy, all of the layers that they have underneath the dress. And I start getting fainty. And I can't believe it. I'm not even on a horse. And look at these girls who, by the way, because it takes them so long to get on top of the horse and get everything in the ruffles to the side and everything perfect, many of them won't drink water because they don't want to be coming down to the horse and having to use.
Yes.
And who's the one that fainted right in the middle? I was.
Now that we're talking about this, you've told me something very important and that I want everybody else to know. You told me that you have a mission. What has been your mission?
Well, that is what I've seen little by little, that my mission is really in contemporary charreria, bring attention that all that the charro is wearing has a purpose and a meaning. There's things that cannot be put in my case, in a painting that should not be. But once again, I am not talking about the beautiful Hollywood style, romanticized. That's a whole different genre that does not apply to this. I'm solely working on contemporary. And I'm learning. I've made mistakes, but I'm enjoying it tremendously, tremendously.
And this brings us to the men attire.
This is the media gala, which they can, a media gala charro suit, and they can ride with this. But for example, just little details. They're wearing a jacket in this suit. They cannot take off the jacket. They're wearing chaps. They cannot take off the chaps. The boots have to be the square boots. All of the horse accoutrements, all of the attack, they have to be all natural fiber. Nothing can be synthetic. So there's a lot of things like that, and it's been quite interesting. This one is now in this show, and this is called faena. Faena is the working outfit, and it is a simple shirt. Charros usually in the charreria, we cannot use any bright colors, pinks or oranges. They use very much more toned down colors, earthy colors. This is about the brightest you could get in their outfits. And here he is in a chaparrera, and he's also, it's very important that they have a sarape rolled up in the back of their saddle. One thing that they've been trying to get away is when you see the charros and they'll put the last name on the back of the saddle. That is a big no-no now, but they still do it. And here's some of this is some of the elements that we were talking about of the previous image, the sombrero, and then the moño. You have to excuse me, but I talk with these terms in Spanish. It's hard for me to translate. So the bow. And you'll see the different kind of belt, and they're not allowed to use the American kind of belt. Mm-hmm. And the pants have to go down to the bottom of the boot, and they need to have that extra fabric always. It's interesting to know that some of the outfits will have silver buttons. Those are the ones that usually you do not ride in. The ones that have all these ornaments at the sides of the legs are embroidered, because otherwise it would be very difficult. Unless you're doing a parade, you could do that. So that's another charro of faena. Yes. Another important thing about painting charreria that I have learned is that when I paint a lienzo charro, that's the rodeo, every single person that appears in the painting must be wearing the charro outfit, or the escaramuza. You cannot put somebody with a tennis cap on, which happens a lot. They're in there. But yeah. Now, here is a very interesting thing. The difference between a mariachi and a charro. So a mariachi is a musician. And there's very easy ways to know the difference, because one thing that charros always joke about is they come into an event and people will say, "Oh, I didn't know there was going to be mariachis." And they are not mariachis. Maybe some charros could be mariachis or vice versa, I don't know. But in terms of the outfit, mariachis will have a lot of
Embellishments, maybe?
embellishments, and they don't have so many rules and guidelines. No. They can wear all blue, all red, all orange, but a mariachi you will never see with those colors. Another thing that's very easy to tell a mariachi hat from a charro. A charro hat is not only for against the elements, it's also protection. If you've ever seen how heavy they are and hard they are, there are 4 dents or creases, we're called pedradas, 4 in a charro hat. A mariachi only ever has 2. Also, a mariachi hat, a charro hat, will have the front of his hat straight across, lifted in the back. There have been very many through the history. I'm talking about contemporary right now, what is mostly used. So it'll be straight across because it protects them from the sun. And the back gives them, some people say it's for air, some people for when they, they can bang their hair or whatever. But it's always 4 creases and dents, 4 pedradas. And pedradas is a rock, so they look like they've been rock, 4 of them. And a mariachi, of course, is a singer, it's a musician. He wants to be seen, so this is what goes on with a mariachi hat. And it only has 2. And they wear all the ornaments you can imagine. Usually the buttons have musical themes to them.
Right.
The charro will use much more of horses and the emblems of Mexico.
Art critic Jerry Saltz suggests that art is a verb, not a noun. He believes that the true power of art lies in its ability to evoke a response in the viewer. Through your art, you don't just express love, fulfillment, and respect for charrería, but you embody these emotions. Your work is a reflection of your deep emotional connection to contemporary charrería, your traditions, history, and culture. Could you describe the emotions your work evokes in you during the creative process and the importance of understanding and validating the feelings that your art evokes in your viewers?
Well, you brought me back to a place where, like many of us, one of my big admirers, artists that I've always admired, is the great Spanish painter Joaquín Sorolla La Bastida. And I knew I couldn't go to Spain and paint the women on horses, but I remembered the escaramuzas of my grandfather, and lo and behold, living in San Antonio, there's so many different lienzos, so I headed out there. This was many years ago. There was a Feria de Escaramuzas where there's all teams competing. And when I got there, I was just I was like tearing up to see all of those women dressed so beautiful on top of these horses that it just made this emotion. And right there is when I said, this is what I have to do. Mm. Also, why, if you think about charrería, what was declared the national sport of Mexico in 1933. But in 1950, Don Luis Ortega was a trainer in Mexico City, which, by the way, I just found out he had come to Texas and seen a beautiful display of men and women on horses, got the idea to make a team of boys and girls in Mexico. That was the start of the escaramuzas, which later would be made into all women, 8 women. So when I got there and I saw these ladies, I realized that even though they had been officially incorporated to participate in the charrería in 1991, so recent, after years and years of being the helpers, the pretty ones in the back, but they were not in the forefront, I thought I had the opportunity to bringing them into the forefront. And I started painting them. And when I walk around and I talk to them, sometimes I'll try and pose them, but most always it happens that I say, well, I want to capture something like this. And I move around, turn around, look at my camera, and then I turn and I see exactly what I want. They've gotten to exact position that I want. And I try to portray what I feel is beautiful, that emotion. And I feel that when I do that, when I'm sincere with what I like, it kind of shows through. But it really excites me, it makes me very happy to be able, through the years, to put a little bit of grain of salt, to put these girls on the forefront. I recently, years ago, I got an email from a group telling me, look, we're on the cover of Vogue. I said, well, it doesn't mean it was me, but they were very nice to send me that. And it's been very exciting to see more and more artists, male and female, paint the escaramuzas. It's been very exciting.
On this painting in front of San Jose Mission in San Antonio, I want to comment that people are so used to seeing the escaramuzas at the missions that now when they visit the sites and they don't see them, they wonder, where are they? And this is all because of Gladys.
Well, a lot of people might not know that part of the escaramuzas, they're very devout groups. They say prayers before they go out into the lienzo, because if all of you cowgirls, cowboys, we know when you see also what they do, it can be dangerous. So through the years, they have this tradition of stopping by in front of the churches. Now, this is not currently done. I think the last time this was done in Mission San Jose was in the 70s, because it's a sacred ground and they did it for special occasions. Yeah. This is the Alamo, but that's because the parade went through. That's different. But so I wanted to capture that moment. It's called Devotion, and I painted that moment, which also won an award for the Idlegeorge Museum a couple of years ago. I captured that moment, that intimate moment when they're all saying a prayer before heading, because Mission San Jose has a rodeo very close by. So they would stop by, say a prayer, and then head out to the competition.
Right. Let us discuss the enchanting atmosphere you have created in your paintings, particularly those featuring the escaramuzas. The contemporary charreada, both before and during the competition, is a vibrant celebration of Mexican tradition, filled with excitement, competition, and joy. Your paintings, however, go beyond mere representation. They manage to capture a family-like, calm, inclusive, positive, and very natural atmosphere, almost as if they were a window into the event itself. How do you manage to infuse your work with this magic?
Again, I just go around and I find exactly what I'm attracted to, because I don't think I can do something like this if I post them. And again, many times I'll get them back into the studio, like this wonderful mother. She's a physician and her little child. The only part of the escaramuza where a mother, an older lady, can carry a child is in the entrance into the rodeo, the parade. And they can carry it. And I saw this pose and I said, very endearing, because it not only shows the love of a mother to a child, but it also shows the continuation of a tradition, because they really try to continue this charreria in their families. Yes, and I love to capture each escaramuza with a horse. I usually know the names of the horses and everything. Yeah, these gals were having a lot of fun one day, and I thought that would be fun to capture. And then you see the young men that are running around and the girls in the back that are getting ready for the competition. And this was a national competition, and this is a group from Laredo that came in to cheer up the group that was in the rodeo. But I loved all what the play of light and the shadow was doing, so I tried to capture all of them in there. Yes. What can I say? This is the mothers getting the children ready, because there's teams of young ones and teams of older ones, and there's the very small ones. They actually train them. If you've ever been there, they train them in the rodeo, and they have a little broom horse. That's how they learn their little routines before they ever put them on the horse. But many of these escaramuzas, I have known them since they were in their mom's belly. I've been to their weddings, I've been to funerals, it's been really exciting know that they are really, really dedicated to preserving this tradition. And one thing that never ceases to impress me is that they compete in the area, locally, regionally, nationally. And the champions in the United States go and compete with the best teams in Mexico, and sometimes they outdo them. But the most important thing is that when they go to Mexico, they borrow horses to compete, because unfortunately they have taken the horses. Sometimes the horses disappear, so they have to borrow them. But if you are a rider, you know how that connection is so important for you, and for them to go into the main place in the world where this is practiced, and then to win, it's just, my hat's off to them.
One last question before we proceed with the question and answer part of the program. Could you share your views on the future of how charreria is portrayed in contemporary art, and how it might influence your future work and the themes you choose to explore?
Well, like I said before, I'm really excited to see more and more artists taking this subject matter. But I also enjoy very much all the modernist styles that are coming in, not in contemporary charreria. I love that what everybody's doing. I think there's room for everybody. I just zero in, again, on contemporary. But I think there's a bright future with the different techniques and styles, even in the show. I love to come see what all the younger and not so younger artists are doing. And this one is part of the Wickenburg Desert Caballeros permanent collection also. This is the moment where the escaramuzas are coming into a parading and are getting, they have to get into position. So they weren't very happy for me painting them this way because they were not into position, but I loved all the movement, and I loved that the foreground was in the shadow and there was light in the background. But there you can really see their outfits. Yes. This one was also here last year. And this one was on, I'm painting, I recently finished a 10-foot by 10-foot mural-sized painting similar to this. This is Mission San Jose too, and it's basically the same thing. They're stopping by the mission. And of course, bluebonnets in Texas. So sometimes they're out there in the fields, and I wanted to capture the beauty of the bluebonnets. Not only do I paint charreria, again, I paint my heritage. So here I'm painting another very important dress of Mexico. What I think my mission is here is trying to be very authentic because I understand the language, I guess, because I understand the culture, that I can maybe get a little bit more concentrated on what has to be portrayed in contemporary outfits like this one. And yes, this painting, this painting, I'll tell you the story about this painting. This painting, I submitted it to the Briscoe Museum a couple of years ago, but I was very worried. I was brought up with toreros and matadores. I understand there's a lot of people that are very sensitive to that. So it was very hard for me to paint this painting and thinking that I might be making people upset. I was worried, but I did not paint the bull, as you can see. This was at the height of COVID. If y'all remember when the shows were not open to everybody. And I painted this painting. I worked with this torero that is from Monterrey, my hometown. And I believe that the original painting, you can really get a nicer sense of the beauty of the outfit. So I decided to title it Untitled, because I did not want people just to look at the suit, but that I put in parentheses, suit of light. I wanted people to focus more on him and what he had in his hand, on his left hand. And but I was nervous. I had dropped it off at the museum, and I was talking to a collector, and I said, I'm worried they're going to call me and tell me, I don't think you can put this painting. I was worried about that. So one afternoon, I had already dropped it. I was helping with the American women artists reviewing portfolios, and I saw a phone call come in, and I saw Briscoe, and I said, oh my goodness. They're going to call me and ask me to come pick up this painting. I know it. And I said, well, let me finish doing all of the different, helping the different portfolios of these artists that had signed up to visit with me. And when I was done, I said, okay, take a deep breath and listen to the message. And it was the curator of the Briscoe. And she said, Gladys, I just want to let you know that for the first time ever, this is literally the words that are recorded. Your painting won Best in Show by unanimous vote. And I was just crying. I was just crying because I thought I was going to be kicked out of there. And my sister, who was visiting from Mexico, was in another part of the studio. She saw me that I was crying. And of course, we were in the middle of this terrible COVID. And she thought, what happened? Who got sick? Is somebody ill? And I said, no, you just don't understand. I can't believe, And then when I came to the museum and I visited with some of the docents and curators, I asked them about this. I said, why did you choose this painting? There might be somebody here from the Briscoe that could have to this. But anyways, they said, when we saw this painting come in, we could all relate to it because we were going through COVID. We didn't know what was out there. We were afraid. What was in the future? What was happening? What was the truth? What was not the truth? And I couldn't believe that's how people really felt this painting. And it won Best in Show. So, yes. One thing that I've really enjoyed painting also is the beautiful buildings and the missions in San Antonio. And in this case, this is the side chapel of Mission San Jose. And in this case, my beautiful daughter, Annie, has posed for me many times. And I truly enjoyed capturing the carving and the sunlight in this painting. This is also my daughter. She poses for me quite a lot, yes. And because that's also my daughter, Annie. And this is called The Good Book. This is I have time. I want to share a beautiful story about this painting. I painted this painting, and it took me forever. I couldn't get it. I had my daughter posing, and I would erase it, and I would put it again, and I would erase it. And I am a Christian. I had a studio with the skylights, and I just got underneath that skylight, had just erased it like for the fourth time, and I said, "Dear Lord, I just can't do it. It's in your hands. This is to be painted. You need to send me some help here." And I did that, and it just flowed. It just flowed. And it became very, very sentimental to me, very special. I did not want to let it go, but I had promised to send it to the gallery. I delivered it. They told me it's pre-sold, and I was like, okay. I wish that it wasn't. And back then, a very dear friend of ours, I don't think he would mind me saying his name. He is no longer with us. Charles Walker was a very good friend of ours, collector. And he wanted to come to the show with us. And so he came. It's an hour drive to Inside Gallery from San Antonio, and we're visiting. I said, "Well, Charles, I'm kind of sad because the painting, sold, and it's kind of special for me." And we were mingling around, and the owner of the gallery says, "Gladys, I want you to meet the person that bought your painting." I said, "Oh, great." And so she brings me over, and my husband is standing on the end of the room with Charles. And here I go, and she says, here's the man that bought your painting, Charles." And I said, "Charles?" And he says to me, "Yes, Gladys." He says, "Because you've been selling everything you paint. Your children deserve to have a painting of yours." He said to me, "This is for Annie." And he went and he also bought one painting for every other of my children, which is 3. But he says, "This is for Annie, but there's just a condition." And she was right out of college. She says, "This will be hers, but it'll only be hers until she has a real house, not an apartment." And so, lo and behold, she had a copy. And I'm just very happy to report that it lives with my daughter and my other 2 sons. Yeah. Isn't that special for a collector to do something like that? I thought that was so. And yes, he bought one for each one of them directly from the museum or from the gallery. And this painting I also like to share with up-and-coming artists, because I love to mentor artists, because people say, "Well, I submitted to this show and it got rejected and whatever." And you take, as artists, we put our hearts on our sleeves, and I got rejected. And I tell them, "Well, this painting I submitted got rejected, but that it also won Best in Show, not in 1 and 2, but in 3. So it tells you that you can't take it personally. It's only the opinion of who's there. Your painting doesn't mean that it's not good enough to receive an award. And I find that it's inspiring to young people to say that. So, thank you. My husband, Rafael, is from the great state of Veracruz. This is the official dance of las jarochas. And I wanted to capture a moment in time in his hometown where the girls were getting ready. This is a quite large painting, getting ready, putting makeup before they would step out into that courtyard in dancing. So this brings me a lot of good memories.
One last one.
This is one of my favorite models, Mrs. Carla Murillo, that you know, great escaramuza. And I work with her constantly. And as we all know, cowgirls and cowboys is not just about riding and looking pretty, it's about tending to your horses and all the, the not so glamorous work. And she always invites me to come over and to her ranch and paint her.
She's wonderful. Well, Gladys, we're grateful for your willingness to share your stories and the cultural legacies that have shaped your art. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for being here. If anybody has a question, we have time for questions.
We
right?
have time for
anybody.
questions and answers. There are 3 microphones at the front. If you would like to come over, please.
I think. No?
Yes. There's a gentleman showing up.
Hey,
okay.
Gladys,
Ah,
go ahead.
where are you?
Over there.
Hey,
Over
Gladys.
here.
Yeah. So I kind of probably know the answer to this, but talk a little bit more about your influence as a painter. You mentioned Sorolla, which is obvious
Sorolla.
to me, and you know your painting ability. I've watched your career for a long time. You know that, and you're just doing incredible work these days. I have to tell you. So I think it might be interesting to people to know a little bit more about your painting influence. You know, as opposed to the subject matter, really.
Yes, my painting influence has been for many, many years Joaquin Sorolla. Not only the amazing artist he was, and draftsman, and a colorist, and everything, but if you ever read his biography and his story back then, you know, artists were like rock stars. He was an amazing family man, dedicated to his wife and children. That gives me an extra layer of admiration to him. And for the last 35 years, I've tried to get anything that's written from way back when he was alive in Spanish or in Valenciano, which was his native language. I've had the privilege to go to Valencia and paint on the Malvarrosa. Talk about hard. Paint the water there and enjoy that. And it's my inspiration. I'm glad you brought that out because I talk about this when I talk with young artists. In my life, in my career, I have decided to compete only against myself. Because I tell the young artists, it can be very overwhelming when you know about this artist just did this one just won that one is doing this. It can get overwhelming. So I have always competed against myself, trying to get better. And the artists that I study and that I spend my time reading about, visiting museums, are no longer here. And it's mostly the Spanish artists and costumbristas artists. Like there's a great Mexican artist who died very young, Saturnino Herrán, was one of the greatest. But Joaquin Sorolla is my hero, sorry. Yes, sir.
On the chimera, is that how you say that? The dresses the women compete in?
The escaramuzas.
Well, okay. All the rules.
Yes.
Are there individualities allowed in the design?
No.
None whatsoever.
Not so. No. I just got. Usually, when I'm able to, I've made it a point that when any of my paintings find a home, I try and give a little donation to the team so that they can help themselves with new dresses. And with this mural that I'm doing, mural size painting, I just ordered them 8 embroidered dresses. I'll never do that without finding out the price. But they're beautiful dresses. And they all had to be embroidered. They're heavily embroidered. They are turquoise, and they're heavily embroidered. But they all have to be exactly the same. The only thing that can change is probably your earrings. Oops, sorry. The earrings. Some of them wear bracelets. But everything has to be exactly the same or they get disqualified.
And how much did the 8 cost?
Each dress costs about $1,200. Yeah. But it's worth investing in them so they can continue in this.
In the sport.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Well,
for
thank you
listening to
so
us.
much. Thank you.